Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the FBIS training series. Today, I will be working through the process of adding SASS data. So SASS, as you know, is the South African scoring system, and it's a river health monitoring tool that uses aquatic macroinvertebrates to tell us something about river health or general ecological condition. So what I'm going to do today is to just find a site and add SASS data to it. I'm going to use one of my sites I'm most familiar with to demonstrate for today's purposes. Today's session is series 10 in the seminar series, in the training series. Okay, so G2 is the Jonkershoek, the river at Witbrug on the Jonkers River, which many of you know. And essentially what I'm going to do, I'm not going to add a site because that was covered in a previous session. I'm going to show you how you can add data to an existing site. Okay, so essentially I would open up the data or the site, and I would navigate down using my scroll bar to the area where it says add SASS, and essentially by clicking on that, I'm telling FBIS that I want to now add SASS data to this particular site. The form add SASS record for site X is opened up, and your site is shown as well as all nearby sites with a pin drill, and you can see I'm adding data to a well-known site in the Upper Easter River catchment. The first thing to add is the date. You can use the drop-downs to navigate to earlier records or earlier years and specify the month. I'm going to choose today's date and add the data as that. If I am the owner of the SASS data, then I can leave it as myself because I am the person who's logged in. But if you are capturing data on behalf of somebody else who actually did the assessment, then the option is given to change that to somebody else, such as Sean Goos, who samples this site quite often. You could allocate the site to her. However, I'm going to leave it in my own name for now. I am currently SASS accredited, so I will tick that section to show that I am accredited. And now I'm going to browse and add an image to the site by opening up my photographs. I think I'll just choose one for demonstration. Add that site. Photograph. Then you'll all recall that on the SASS data sheet, the first thing you need to do is to rate your biotopes. We have designed the SASS form to mimic the SASS data sheet to make it as user-friendly and easy to capture your data. Now at this site, I have rated my abundance, and essentially I'm now going to capture it on the form. So my stones in current were a rating of 3, stones out of current were a 2, bedrock was a 1, aquatic veg was a 2, marginal veg in current was also a 2, veg out of current was a 3, gravel was a 1, and there was no sand and there was no mud. So very easy, just click on the ratings for each of the biotopes sampled during your SASS assessment. Next up, in tabulated form are each of our 3 main biotopes. Just to remind you, we sample stones, veg, and gravel, sand, and mud together. And just systematically, I'm going to work through and add taxa to the site that are commonly recorded there. Okay, so first up, I'm going to put in notoramurids. Remember, we use rank abundance, 1, A, B, C, or D. And essentially what I'm going to do is, remembering this is the stones, the veg, and the GSM, I'm going to add it for each. I've got between 1 and 10 in each biotope, and importantly for the site, it would take it up to a B, so I need to change that. For the betids, I got 3 species in stones, I got 2 species in veg, and 1 species in GSM. It automatically chooses the betids with the highest abundance, but importantly here again, I'm going to change that to a B because there were more than 10 individuals. What else did I find? I found leptophlebids. Okay, and that remains an A because there weren't that many. And I found plenty of telegonodids. Okay, scrolling down, I found 1 Eschnid in the veg, and I found libelulids in the veg and the GSM, but there were less than 10, so it remains an A. There wasn't a lot of, there was a reasonable amount of vegetation, so I found some corixids, I found an acorrid, and there was a couple of pleiads and a few velids. And you can see it very easily adds up the data or the abundance ratings for the site. So in other words, what you found at the site. Corydalids were actually very abundant at this site. Sorry, not veg, it was actually GSM. I found just 1 ichnomid. Hydropsychids, recall, is the same as betids. I found 2 in the veg, in the stones, and just 1 each in the veg and the GSM. Now, importantly in SASS, remember, it's very important to note if these were all the same species or not. And in this case, the 2 from the stones were in fact different to that from the veg. So what I need to do is to make this A disappear and to add an A for the site. So whilst the FBIS system does auto-populate most of the fields, the onus is on you, the SASS accredited person, to make sure that you are correctly filling in the data at the site level. Moving on, we found phylopotamids, some barbarocthonids, glossosomatids, and my personal leptocerids, always present at the site, plenty in the veg. My personal favorite, Petrothromyces, and 1 Pursulid in veg. We found a diving beetle in 2 places, quite a few almids in the stones. There was a gyrinid, actually there were 3 gyrinids, so it'll get an A in the veg. And what else? Athericids and chironomids. Again, this went up to a B. 1 dixid, 3 dixids, and a few typulids, and 1 in the GSM. We didn't find any gastropods or any bivalves. Okay, so what happens then? This gets auto-calculated. The totals get added up for each biotope as well as for the site. I often record dactylity, which is unfortunately, not yet in the SASS phylodactylity. And I'll go stones, abundance equals A. And then if we recorded tadpoles, you can add that in, or any fish species, although hopefully you would actually add this as a separate record in the fish component. Any other comments? I could say things like fire recently burned and bank, and just double check that all your data is correct. I won't do it now, but always good policy to triple check. Make sure that you've got the same number of taxa in your total as was recorded on your sheet. Okay, and then I'm going to agree to share these data and submit the form. So once you've added in your biotope ratings and you've updated the SASS data, the next form that opens up is what we call the abiotic form, which allows you to add any sort of physicochemical data that you may have collected at a site, as well as things such as the depth of the water, etc., etc. So there it gives you again your site code and the date. Now what I'm going to do, I normally measure these when I'm doing SASS. And for the first 5 parameters, what we've done is to give a rating or a range. So in my case, the river was between 2 and 5 meters wide. The water level was moderate flow. The default is not specified, so if you don't have this data, you just leave it blank. The turbidity, it was fairly clear. Canopy cover was partially open, and the embeddedness, which refers to how much the stones were embedded in the hypereus, or the substratum of the river, and in this case it was in the lowest category, 0 to 25. And then we get a whole host of options for adding various physicochemical parameters. Now, I know when we do SASS on a regular basis, we only measure 4 parameters primarily. Conductivity, just a reminder, you need to convert your conductivity into what is specified in the data form. So in this case, conductivity must be converted to millisiemens per meter. And in this case, it was 6.5. Going to go down to the next variable. Sorry, I wanted to do dissolved oxygen. Where's dissolved oxygen? Okay. Going to add in, okay, here we go. Oxygen dissolved. We always measure that very high at the site generally. I'll also measure percentage saturation, 91. pH, it's very acidic stream this, so it's 5.6. And the last thing that we often measure when doing SASS is a instantaneous temperature measurement. Okay, so we've filled in all of our data. You'll see that it's been measured. It changes from gray to green when it's been added. The next step is to agree to sharing the data and click next and submit. So we've added our SASS data, we've added our abiotic data, and now we need to link this data to a source reference. Now you'll know from the previous tutorial that there are 3 options for source references: a database, a peer-reviewed scientific article, a published report or thesis, as well as unpublished data. For database, you can either select from a pre-existing database. So for example, if you work for Cape Nature and you are adding in SASS data for Cape Nature, you would select Cape Nature SASS database. If your database isn't here and you want to create a new one, you can click Add New, and then you can add any comments around it. What I want to do is to just show you each of the different options. Peer-reviewed scientific article, the important thing to specify here is the DOI in the format that is specified. Once you punch that in, you click on the magnifying glass and it'll go and automatically pick that up from the internet and populate it into the source reference for the records. The third one is a published report or thesis. You have the option of choosing an existing one. So say it was the Berg River invertebrate study. You could then attach that data to that existing study, or indeed upload a new one onto the system. The last category is unpublished data. And I know that I often use this site for SASS accreditation. So I'm just going to look, see if I can see where that unpublished data collected during SASS accreditation assessment. And I'm going to allocate this data that I've just uploaded to this particular unpublished data source. Again, there is the option to add a new one should you wish to. It's important to always check this list because I know a lot of river ecostatus monitoring data is added, and it's nice to be able to keep the source reference clean and standardized as much as possible. And the last point is then you submit that, and it will tell you that that data has been successfully submitted. And if I then want to go back and check on my data, I don't have to resubmit it. I can open up the map, put in my site code, that then comes up. I open up the site overview, move down to the SASS dashboard, open up the dashboard, and we should see our most recent assessment added, which was the 10th of October 2022. And we get that record added to all the others, as well as the most recent abiotic data that we have just added. And then if you wanted to double check on your SASS assessment, the actual data, as per previous tutorial, you can drill down to that data very easily. And if you are the owner of the data and you see that you've accidentally added in an incorrect species or taxon, you can very easily choose edit and then fix that record and save it again. I'm going to leave it there because I'm happy with the data that's been added. And that brings us to the end of the tutorial on adding SASS data. Thank you very much.